Carlos. Oh, una cabaña. You got a cabin there. Es tuya. La casita es tuya, Carlos.
Phantom Ranch.
Ah, okay.
Phantom Ranch. Oh, cool.
Muy lindo. Ok. Bueno, vamos a practicar hoy con otras cosas. No vamos no se trata hoy de gramática tanto. It's not really so much about grammar today. It's about vocab. It's about where words go. You know, what sounds more natural, what does not. You may need this book because you'll probably have some questions. I did not ask you to do exercises out of this yet because some of the exercises in this particular chapter are kind of hard and it's dense in terms of information. So here's what we're not going to do, just so you know. We're not going to say to people, you must memorize every nationality they put in these pages. Yeah, you remember that? Yeah, like 2 pages of nationality. Well, we'll go through some of it, you know, and we'll go through some obvious ones. But, you know, a nationality that I may never use might be because of your family origins important to you, you know. So to say you're going to memorize all those, no. You know, look at those and see what is important to you. So we're not going to like just hit super hard on the nationality thing, but we are going to talk about where naturally some of these adjectives go. And although this is kind of a dense chapter in this book, you can break these ideas down into some big bucket categories. So, and it's not that tough. You know, there are a few of these. We're going to show you a video today where I'll stop the video at one point because at one point it starts to get dense and you can watch the rest of it on your own. And he says at the beginning of the video, oh, you know, you may want to take some notes. Take some notes later. Don't take them today. So what are the big bucket topics we'll need? And we will look a little bit at this, but I'm not going to ask you to do all that on your own. What are the big bucket takeaways? What are the things we should know about adjectives? Well, what you should know about adjectives is that, and this is a topic that comes up a lot, is that generally they fall into maybe 3-4 different categories, and they're not that tough. And some of them are going to feel very natural because it's the way you have heard it said hundreds of times. So here's what's going to be easy. If it's a possessive adjective, and we don't really think of these words as being adjectives, my, your, his, her, our, those are adjectives. Who knew? Okay. If you have a possessive adjective, it comes in front of the noun. And the reason that will feel very, very natural is that you've heard it that way a gazillion times already. Mi casa es su casa, right? Okay, those are possessive adjectives. You've heard that forever. You know, mi gato, mi perro, mi esposo, mis hijos, nuestros libros, nuestra clase. That idea comes very naturally. So possessives come in front of adjectives. The second thing is that anything that they consider a demonstrative comes in front of the noun, that kind of adjective. Demonstrative, what is that? A demonstrative just means this, that, these, those. That's it. So words like this, that, these, those come in front of the noun. Just like my, your, his, our come in front of the noun. Okay, so words like this, that, these, those only serve as a describer to tell you distance relative to the speaker. That's all it does. This and these tells you something is close to the person who's speaking. That and those tells you it's something not so close to the speaker, a little further away. And Spanish gets a little more complicated because there are 2 categories of that two categories of those. It depends on how far away it is. It's a relative thing. Okay, so we know that this, that, these, those comes in front of the noun. We know that my, your, his, her, our possessives come in front of the noun. Those are really natural. Adjectives that really create a vivid visual concept, you know, that really paint a picture in your head, they will follow the noun. So un suéter azul. Azul will be after the noun. And that's the part that's hard for us as English speakers to get used to. Most adjectives follow the nouns they talk about. English does not do that. We say blue sky, blue sweater, okay? Spanish will not. So now we're gonna, the nitty gritty is gonna be that kind of in between, is it a no man's land? Maybe not exactly, but kind of. A lot of adjectives, especially if they talk about quantities, if they talk in any vague or specific way about quantity or amount, they will come in front of the noun. Yeah? Okay. We're going to watch a really good video. It does start to get dense partway through, so we're going to stop it at a logical point. Check through some of the adjectives on this list and do some practice with it. You'll be doing breakout room practice, okay? So you may want this book if you've got questions after the video. The other thing you may need, I did send you the list of the questions we were going to use, right, with the homework. So I'm just going to put it on the screen share so it kind of jogs your memory. You will need to have this page ready. It had 20 preguntas, 20 questions, but they weren't, well, yeah, some of them are questions. And we'll kind of preview those before you take them into breakout room in case some of them are fuzzy or like, what did you mean? You know, so that you know what you're practicing with, but you will need to have that handy. So if you put it up on 2 screens and you split your screen, that's great. Or if you have it printed out, that's great. Okay. But we'll do that after we do an initial video and take on any questions that you've got. Okay. Bueno, entonces voy a encontrar el video. I'm going to find this video and I'll make sure I embed it in a little you know, group so you can access it later. And dura 17 minutos. It's a 17-minute video, so you see why I'm not going to play the whole thing. That would take up a huge chunk of time. But we will watch the big idea part of this video. Tengo que oprimir los botones. I've got to make sure I hit all my buttons with share and put this up. Y aquí vamos. Here we go.
Hola amigos, ¿cómo están? Hey guys, welcome back to another great lesson of the Language Tutor Spanish. This is lesson 66. And in this lesson, we're going to be talking about something that one of you suggested. I was out there on the Language Tutor Spanish Facebook page and I said, hey, what do you guys need from me? And got a lot of great suggestions and they're coming soon. I'm telling you, I've already made a list. But this one is a viewer suggestion, and it is about how nouns and adjectives work together. You know, we've always said adjectives come after the noun, right? We've always said that, you know, and that's a general rule. And don't forget that rule, okay? Because that's still a general rule that typically the adjective comes after a noun. Here's an example. If I were to say, she has a red blouse. Ella tiene una blusa roja. Okay, so there you go, it's a blouse red. And of course, we modify that adjective to match blusa, which is feminine, so it's roja. All right, so don't forget what you already know. That's going to stay the same, all right? But there are some exceptions. Sometimes I refer to these people as troublemakers because they have to break the rules. But there are some exceptions. And in certain cases, we're going to put that adjective in front of the noun, okay? So that's what I want to go over during this lesson. I do want to go ahead and tell you that you may want to get something to write on, and this might
Ahora no, don't take notes now. You'll need that later. But when you rewatch it the second time, you may want to take some notes. Ahora no, not now.
be one of those episodes that you have to start over several times, because I'm going to go ahead and tell you at the end of this episode, I'm going to give you a list of words that can go in either place. We're going to talk about the differences in whether it goes in the front of the noun or after the noun. So you might have to back it up a few times to get those words down in your list, okay? But let's get things going. Let's kick it off, and let's see if we can sort this out, all right? So yes, typically the adjectives go after the noun, but here are some exceptions, okay? Now, first of all, you pretty much already know some of these exceptions, but just want to go over them really quick, because sometimes, I've had students that they'll learn something, but then when I bring in something new, they start confusing what they already knew. So we don't want to bring in something new and confuse what we already know. So stand on what you know and keep doing what you're doing with those things. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. Possessive adjectives, first of all. We know possessive adjectives, demonstrative adjectives, they go in front of the noun. Like if I said my mother, mi madre, okay, that's an example of an adjective that's going to go in front of the noun. Our house, nuestra casa, we know that's going to go in front. This marker, este marcador, okay, so that's an example of how it would go in front of the noun also. All right, so keep doing what you're doing with those. We don't have to worry. We already got those down. Now, we'll go ahead and introduce to you a category of words that we're going to use in front of the noun, and that is adjectives that define quantity, okay? Here's an example. Numbers. Hay 9 casas en la calle. There are 9 houses on the street. Okay, 9. That's an example of one that would go in front of the noun. We know that numbers go in front. So here's another one. Él tiene más dinero que su amigo. He has more money than his friend. That más is going to go in front of the noun. So really, that's like the English, more money, less money. Those things are going to stay just like we know them, okay?
Okay, and I'm going to interrupt here for a quick minute. This word más does not come till much later in this textbook chapter. So actually, this is a good thing to point out. More is a very vague reference to quantity. It just means a larger amount than something else. It's a comparison. But words like more and less still talk about quantity, so they still come in front of the noun. Okay.
So más, the word menos, as I mentioned a second ago, less. The word pocas or pocos, few. There are very few. If I say, hey, there are very few pieces of candy left. Somebody's been eating them. All right, pocas, that would be an example of one that goes in front of the noun. The word enough, suficiente. We have enough food. She has enough food. Suficiente, that would be a good example of one that goes in front of the noun as well, all right? Now, here are some other adjectives that define quality or limits, I should say. We got the word demasiado, too much of something, demasiado, that would go in front of the noun. Also, we've mentioned pocas, but by itself, poco. So poco, poca, pocos, pocas, all of those are going to go in front. Now, the word alguno, some. When you're using alguno as some, that's a good example of one that would go in front. Also, the word ninguno. no or none. All right, another one.
Okay, and so these words are things that we have studied before. This kind of comes back into play because, again, they, in a very vague way, refer to amounts.
Is bastante, another way to say enough. And we also have the word varios, which means enough or sufficient.
Now that looks like it should mean various, doesn't it? You would think, yay, cognate, yay, not so much. Varios actually flips meanings sometimes. So that word's a little bit funky, okay? Not what you expect.
Also, we have cuanto, which means as much. And let's do one more, mucho, a lot or many, muchos. Those would go in front of the noun as well, all right? So those words defining quantity or limits are going to typically, that if they describe and they're adjectives, they're going to typically go in front of the noun as well, okay? Now, also I want to talk about two words that don't necessarily define quantity or limits, but they do kind of go together and they describe in that superlative way, and that is best and worst, okay? Best is mejor, and worst is peor. Those would go in front of the noun as well, best and worst. All right, now, let's move on to another set of words. We have some descriptive adjectives that we would put in front of the noun as well. Now, these words are really words when you want to use an adjective that really emphasizes a quality of or characteristic of someone or something, then you can put it in front of the noun as well. Now, here's an example. If I said, Este dulce chocolate es delicioso. This sweet chocolate is delicious. And we're putting it up there because we really want to emphasize the characteristic of that chocolate.
Okay, I want to pause in here. Don't focus too much on this example. There are some times when a word like dulce, which should be like a kind of a no-brainer. Yeah, chocolate, isn't chocolate always dulce? If it is like a super obvious thing as a describer word, or if they want to give it like poetic emphasis, they may have it precede the noun. Now, I doubt you're going to be reading a whole lot of poetry soon. So I would say don't spend a lot of time on that particular tip. Just know that if you hear people use it, they're using it to give it a feel that I don't know how else to describe it. Dulce is something you would naturally associate with chocolate anyway. Azul is not something that is necessarily every sweater, okay? But dulce is one of those things, well, it has to be sweet to be chocolate.
Sweet chocolate. So if you're really emphasizing that characteristic or a particular characteristic of it, you can put it in front of the noun. Here's one, the brave lion attacked his enemies. You're emphasizing brave, so you could say, el valiente león atacó a sus enemigos. That would be an example. So that valiente is going in front of león. We're emphasizing that characteristic of the lion. That's a good example, all right? Now I'm going to give you two that are kind of by themselves, and these can actually go before or after. Okay, so that's why I'm putting them together, because they can go before or after. And it depends, you're going to hear it both ways. You can use it either way. And that is the word bueno and the word malo, good and bad. I'm going to show you two examples here on the screen. So, un día bueno, a day good, or un buen día. Now notice with bueno and malo, when I put it up front, I'm taking off that O. So I'll just say buen or mal. Okay, so un día bueno or un buen día. It can work either way. You're going to get basically the same meaning out of those, okay? Now, I want to give you one final category of words. These words can go either in front of or after the noun. And the reason I'm giving you these together is because when you use it in the front, it has one meaning, and when you use it after the noun, it has another meaning. So it kind of changes meaning depending on where you use it. All right, and I'm going to give you a list.
Okay, and this is the list where we're only going to see a few examples, like some super common ones, and the rest you can watch later.
So this is really where you may want to rewind, back this video up a few times and watch it if you're taking notes right now. Si tomas apuntes, okay? Now, first one I want to give you is the word pobre, pobre. Now, before the noun, it really implies that unfortunate, I say that poor man, pobre hombre, it really implies unfortunate, oh, that poor man. It's kind of like English. When we say it like that, it's like, oh my gosh, that poor guy, very unfortunate. But when we put it at the end, after the noun, it really just implies poor in terms of money, okay? So that's kind of what this whole list is about. All right, now, the next one is viejo, viejo. Now, this one, before the noun, kind of means former somebody, all right? But when you put it after, it means old age, all right? They're old aged.
Okay, an example here. Viejo can mean former. It can also mean old, as in from long ago. So here's where you're really going to hear people use this. Es mi viejo amigo. He's my old friend, meaning I've had this friend for forever. Okay. A friend from long ago, a friend for a long-standing friendship. Okay. Mi viejo amigo. So that is super common in everyday language. Pobre and viejo, you will hear a lot in two positions. And their meaning does shift depending on whether you put it in front of the noun or after the noun.
Like really old in terms of how old they are. Okay. Now then you've got the word nuevo, new. All right, before it kind of means another. So nuevo coche kind of means like I got another car. It's a newer one for me. But after the noun, it's going to mean it's new, as in it's newly made, newly acquired, okay? Now the next one is varios.
Oh, I will give you varios.
Before the noun, this kind of means several, various in the several way. But after the noun, it kind of implies different, okay? All right, the next.
Okay, and I'm going to stop it there because he gets into many of these. And one of the things with Spanish that you will notice when you watch the rest of that video is that, and this is the part where it starts to get confusing, and it may actually help to take notes on that video when you watch it the second time. Spanish, for reasons that I don't know, it goes way back hundreds of years, has lots and lots of words to say different or various. There are lots of synonyms, okay? So you're gonna find that he's gonna have several words where when you listen to that video, the reason he tells you may have to back up and take notes is that you go, didn't we just have that word? Spanish has a lot of synonyms, words that mean the same thing, for words like different and various. They just do. But what you want to hit are the ones that in conversation people will use a lot. And varios you do actually hear a lot because, sometimes people do just want to say, you have several of this item, and you'll hear them using varios, okay? Like, when you're showing a selection of goods, quiero comprar una cartera, I want to buy a wallet. Hay varias allí, hay varias carteras. Well, there are several here. So you may hear that word. And some words you'll hear more than others, but viejo and pobre and, those kind of words you will probably hear a lot, even from time to time. Nuevo. Nuevo, another. Tengo un nuevo carro, I've got another car, meaning one in addition to the usual one, or one in addition to the one you know about, maybe. All right. Whereas nuevo after does indicate brand new, something that, you know, is a recent purchase or recently made. Bien. Muy bien. So the part that will become kind of difficult will be when some of these adjectives shift position, might come before the noun, might come after the noun, and that might change the actual meaning. That's where it starts to get a little bit tough. But this idea of things that just refer to quantity or amounts, be they specific or be they vague or very general, that is a rule that's kind of easy to hang on to. You know, those quantity adjectives come before the noun. Quiero tomar una pausa. I want to take a pause here and see. ¿Tienen ustedes alguna pregunta? Do you guys have some kind of question about that general idea of adjectives that come before? No hay ninguna pregunta. No question. Wow, ustedes son listos. You guys are smart. Ustedes son listos. No? Okay. No hay ningún. The one that sometimes gives people trouble is this idea of why in heaven's name do they flip the order of bueno and malo? Yeah. Well, por ejemplo, aquí en el libro, here in the book, they give you as an example of bueno and malo. Estoy en la página 108. And it's the one that has the big title that says adjectives that precede, that means come before a noun. They give you bueno and malo right up front because those two, you know, we use good and bad all the time in English and in Spanish in any language. They give you as examples, este niño es un buen estudiante. This kid, this child, is a good student. Su hermana es una buena estudiante. His sister is a good student. Ellos son buenos estudiantes. Bueno, you know, good when you come to adjectives is one of those unavoidable, everybody uses it, but nevertheless, kind of a boring adjective. Well, that's good. It's not fantastic. It's not stupendous. It's not outstanding. It's good. Okay. So, you know, good or bad, because they're so kind of vague and generic. You know, if I say it's a good day, I could mean the weather is good or the events of the day were good. Things went well. You know, good is kind of generic. So, you know, you will often hear bueno and malo. Those opposites of each other, bueno and malo, come before a noun quite often. Okay. Also notice that bueno and malo, when it's a masculine singular noun, and bueno or malo comes in front, it drops that o. That's the thing that's a little bit tough. So do notice that on page 108. We would not say es un bueno estudiante. You would think it should be bueno. There's a whole category of words in Spanish, and it's kind of a finite, it's a small category, but it's kind of like what you had with alguno, dropping that o for algún, and ninguno, dropping that o for ningún. They all fit in the same category. Bueno, if it's used as masculine singular, that o, it's truncated, it's taken off the end. It becomes buen. Only when it comes in front of the noun. Es un buen día. Es un buen carro. It's a good car. Es un buen chico. He's a good boy. Es un buen perro. He's a good dog. Eres buen perro. You're a good doggy. Eres buen perro. Okay? But And malo will do the same thing. We chop off the o. If we use it as malo, masculine, singular. So those are two shortened adjectives, buen, mal, only in those situations. So I do want to point that out. Okay. Magnifico. There's one other adjective I want to point out from this group they showed you in the book. En la página 109, 109. There's another adjective here I want to point out because, well, actually there are two. Hay dos. Número tres, number three. La tercera palabra, the third word on 109. Cada, C-A-D-A, cada. Cada means each or every. You would think because cada ends in a, and because it's an adjective and, oh, I'm a good student, soy buena estudiante, soy buena estudiante. Wow, cada must change that letter a at the end, depending on what it describes. Cada never changes. It does not change for anything. Cada, that word is always cada. It does not go into a masculine form. It does not become cado. So that is a pretty big departure. We use the word cada quite a lot. Cada día, every day. Cada libro, every book. But cada, ending in a, is always cada. It does not change its form. It won't become plural. It won't become masculine. It is just cada, okay? The second one I want to look at, el penúltimo, the second from the bottom, that word otro. I want to point this one out because a lot of times we use the idea of another. And another in Spanish, A-N-O-T-H-E-R, another. A lot of people want to say uno otro, other, un otro. Nobody ever says un otro. Un otro is one of those great big gringo, gringo, gringo things. We don't use otro with the idea of un or unos or anything like that. Otro always stands by itself. It may become feminine. It's okay. So unlike that word cada, otro will change into masculine, feminine. Otra buena idea. Another good idea. Otra buena idea. Okay. Es un buen, es otro libro. Es otro libro. Necesito otra taza de café. I need another cup of coffee. So otro will change gender, but it's never un otro or una otra. It's only just otro. Okay? Bien? Because that is a really, really common issue. Okay. Vamos a ver. En la página 110, 110, I want to take a real quick look at three words that you also hear a lot. They give us adjectives that express only, next, only, and last. These ideas of next, próximo, only, único, and último, last or final. And that one is easy for us to remember because último sounds like ultimate, you know, último is last. These ideas are really, they just tell you kind of like in what order something. Again, they kind of refer to kind of broad category almost of quantity, right? First, it doesn't tell you a quantity, but it tells you the order. If I say the first girl in line, the first project of the day, first just tells you what order you're doing something with or you know, taking something on. First doesn't describe if it's a difficult project. an easy project, it just tells you the order it's being done in. So again, it doesn't paint a picture of like what that project is like. It just tells you the order in which it's being processed or worked on. Are you all back? I am sorry. I don't know what happened. I have no idea what happened. It just totally, that's the first time that's ever happened to me. It totally zonked out on me. Okay. And that left me rather suddenly. Okay. I think that's an internet problem on my part. I think we've got everybody back. If we have some dinging, it means people need to come back in. Vale, bien. Okay. ¿Tienen preguntas? Do you guys have any questions about that? Sí o no? ¿Es obvio? Is it obvious or is it not obvious? Or is it kind of hard, any part of that to deal with it before we go off to practice? Oh, and you may have to unmute yourself because I think you're all muted. Except for me. So Diane, if you got a question, you'll have to unmute.
No, I don't have a question. I just think it's practice in getting those words in your head. I don't think it's
in your head.
difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
Eso es, that is, and that's why I've got these questions set up for you. So we're going to do some examples first, and examples both way. Adjectives we would use after, and adjectives we would use before. Okay. Bueno, por ejemplo, algo muy fácil. Muy fácil. Es una carrera. It's a race. Es una carrera de caballos, ¿no?
Sí.
It's a horse race. Es una carrera de caballos. Oui, hay muchos caballos en la carrera. There are lots of horses in this race. Hay muchos caballos. Hay muchos caballos fuertes. Hay muchos caballos rápidos. Hay muchos caballos rápidos. There are lots of fast horses. Bien? Now, that idea he did with dulce chocolate, if I did something like rápidos caballos, that's probably something like out of a poem. Most people won't say it as rápidos caballos ever. Or rápidos carros. They will not do that. Okay? Bien? Okay. Por ejemplo, aquí tenemos una foto de dos niños cerca de la Navidad. Los niños tienen los calcetines aquí. Hay pocos regalos. There are very few gifts here. Hay pocos regalos aquí. Son niños muy curiosos. Son niños curiosos. They are curious kids. Pero tienen pocos regalos, but they have just a few gifts. Bien? Ok. Aquí, en la cocina. En la cocina hay poca gente en la cocina. There are a few people in the kitchen. Hay poca gente. Gente is very general for people. Hay poca gente en la cocina. ¿Ok? Bien. A ver. Bueno. Aquí tenemos una banda de la Universidad de Iowa, no, it's Iowa State. Es una banda y hay muchos músicos. Hay un montón. There are a ton of them. Hay muchos músicos. There are many musicians en la banda musical. La banda musical needs to follow it. It paints a picture of people in uniform. When I say banda musical, you have an idea of people with, uniforms and the hats with the funny plumes and they're marching. Una banda musical. Yeah, that they're doing all that. But just, hay muchos músicos. There are lots of musicians. Bien? Okay. La chica tiene varios papeles. Tiene varios papeles. She has several papers. We just know it's a stack of them. Varios papeles does not tell us if they are exceedingly difficult bits of homework, if they are tedious, if they are boring, if they are interesting. It just tells us an amount. Hay varios papeles aquí. ¿Ok? Bien, bien. Tenemos una boda. Es la boda real de Meghan y Harry. Y hay muchas personas en la boda de Harry y Meghan. Hay muchas personas elegantes. Hay muchas personas elegantes. ¿Ok? Bien. Elegantes paints a picture that people are very dressed up. Bien. Okay. Bien. We are going to preview this, and I'm going to put this up on the big screen because pretty soon I'm going to send you out to practice this, but we're going to check and just make sure that you don't have any questions before you go out into the separate practice in small numbers group. So here are the questions or items. Some of them are finish a sentence. Some of them are just answer a question, okay? And so when you go out into the breakout rooms to practice this, and I'm going to give you a fair amount of time to practice this. Hay 20 preguntas. Son muchas. There are a lot of them. Hay muchas. You should take some time to carefully practice it. And I want you to actually say the question out loud. Okay, don't just answer the questions back and forth. One person asks the question, one person answers. So, ¿quién es buen cantante? ¿Quién es buen cantante? ¿Quién es buen cantante? Who's a good singer? And
¿por qué no un? ¿Quién es un?
Buena pregunta. Why don't we say ¿quién es un buen cantante? Okay. Buena pregunta. When we use a, in this case, cantante would mean a profession, someone who does this for la, 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 right, for a living, okay? Shakira or quien sea, whoever it may be. Whenever we use ser, okay, like es or son or soy, and a profession, we don't use in Spanish. It's just what they do. With es or son and a profession, they don't use that. Okay, now a little warning. This might become buena cantante if you wind up talking about a female. You know, cantante can be both masculine and feminine. So if you wind up giving a lady, you know, if you want to talk about Celine Dion, then you have to change that to buena cantante. Okay, so you have to change that mentally depending on who you're talking about, what sex the person is. So I'm going to leave that in there. It might have to become buena cantante. ¿Quién es buen cantante? Según los expertos en medicina, ¿cuáles son malas ideas? What are bad things? What are bad things according to medical experts, you know? And I want you to use infinitives. Like activities that would be bad things. Fumar mucho. You know, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Okay. ¿Qué organización necesita muchos fondos? What organization needs lots of money? Yeah, income, fondos. And I probably wouldn't use dinero here, just fondos, because people donate or contribute, right? Or They even be from government, quién sabe, who knows. Okay, muchos fondos, funds, funding, money in their coffer. ¿Quién es una persona de pocas palabras? Who is a person of few words? They like to use that phrase. ¿Qué día tienes bastante trabajo? Bastante can mean enough. Bastante can be used to mean quite a lot of. And here, bastante means quite a bit. Rather than not just really enough. It probably means quite a bit. Tengo bastante trabajo. I've got quite a lot of work. And again, it's a vague kind of quantity. Okay. No tengo suficiente dinero para. I don't have enough money for whatever. You're going to fill that out. ¿Tienes otra casa? Do you have another house? Some people do. ¿Dónde está? Where is it? ¿Dónde vive tu viejo amigo o tu vieja amiga? Where does your oldest, not really best, I could have put mejor in there, but I didn't. Where does your old friend live? The one you've had for a really long time. ¿Cómo se llama tu viejo, tu amigo? ¿Cómo se llama tu amigo viejo is different. What's the name of your friend, the guy who's an old guy? Okay. Hay gran diferencia entre amigo viejo, a friend who's an older person, an elderly person, or viejo amigo, a long-standing friend you've had for a very long time. ¿Cómo era tu antiguo jefe? Antiguo, like viejo, can become before or after. Antiguo can mean antique, but when it comes in front, again, it's kind of like viejo, former. Antiguo jefe would mean former boss, previous boss, a boss you used to have, but you don't have anymore. Okay. ¿Qué marca es tu último carro? What brand is your latest car, right? ¿Qué marca fue tu primer carro? What brand was your very first car ever? And the fue just means was. ¿Qué haces la próxima semana? What are you doing next week? Próxima. Next just tells you what order it's in. It's kind of like amount. Next week doesn't paint a picture of like a warm week or a sunny week or a rainy week. It's just what order. Oh, next week. La próxima semana. ¿Qué haces cada día? What do you do every day? En tu familia, ¿quién trabaja todos los días? Todos los días. All the days. We say every day. Cada día and todos los días are synonymous terms. They're just different ways of expressing every day. The concept in English, every day. In English, we do not say all the days unless you say something like all the days of my life, all the days of my career. But you don't really hear people say it a lot. We just say every more frequently in English. But in Spanish, you can express every with those two phrases, cada and the noun, or todos los, todas las. Okay, bien. 16. ¿Quién es un gran hombre de la historia? Who is a great man in history? Gran is very different from grande. And just like we cut off the O of bueno, or we cut off the O of malo, or we cut off the O from ninguno, with grande, big, when we put grande in front of a noun, we cut off more than just the letter at the end. Grande, we shorten it to gran. But gran changes quite a bit. Gran means great, as in illustrative, someone of tremendous importance, gran. So un gran hombre means a great man, but un hombre grande Oh, perdón. And this alguien famoso should have been in the other thing. Cut and paste. Oops. I did a bad cut and paste there. Oh, no, I know why I did that. Okay, perdón. No, take that back, guys. This is the high school teacher coming out in me. Okay, so gran nombre. But un hombre grande might be big man as in big, or might be big as in kind of portly. It could carry either connotation. And I say alguien famoso. You know how in high school, if you said, point out like a huge person, and they'll pick the fattest guy in the room and they'll humiliate that person. Yeah, old habits. Yeah. So somebody famous who was kind of hefty, or who is kind of hefty. Yeah. Okay. Hombre grande would mean big. And it might mean just big like sports player, or it might mean big as in kind of portly. It could be either. ¿A dónde? 18. ¿A dónde quieres ir ahora mismo? Ahora mismo means right now. Ahora mismo is one of those phrases that is this is a great phrase to know. A lot of people say ahora mismo, and they mean right now. Right now. Donde vive mucha gente pobre, mucha gente. We're just talking about quantities, right? And now, oh, pobre mujer, poor woman. Ella no, she doesn't. So you got to fill it in. Pobre mujer does not mean somebody who's destitute, who has no money. Well, could, but pobre mujer means, oh, I feel sorry for that person. That poor means, oh, I feel sorry. There is a situation which is just extremely unfortunate about that person. Bien? Okay. ¿Tienen preguntas? Do you have any questions? Or no? Nada? Nothing?
Can we go back to one for a minute?
Sí, claro. Sí.
If you took it as who in this group is a good singer, then you would put the un in?
Oh, en este grupo. You might, yeah, okay. And if you're talking about like a group of us, we who are not professionals, who don't do this for a living.
Exactly. That's sort of how I thought of it. Like who in your didn't say family, but who in your family is a good singer?
And because of how that is phrased, you know that we're talking about a professional.
Okay, got it.
And because of the use of ser. Es buena pregunta. Okay. That's a good. It's always a good question. If you've got a question, guys, it's always a good one. Yeah? Vale? Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you quite a bit of time to work on this, and I'll probably pop into groups here and there just to listen and make sure. And I may just pop in if I can put me with the camera off just to see that, you know, people are getting the idea. Para que sepan, so you know. Okay, but I didn't want to throw you out into practice without having a chance to ask a question if something was unclear. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Okay, magnífico. Van a practicar ahora. Uy, vamos a ver. Let's get you out into groups. En grupos. ¿Cuántos somos? How many of us are there? I think I want to put you not into necessarily groups of just 2, but maybe 3, so you can bounce some ideas off of each other. We see. So a couple of you might be in groups of 2, but most of you will be in groups of 3. Okay. I think we're going to need maybe about 10 minutes, 10 minutos, no? Okay. Bien. Remember to hit your join button.